Hi guys, Sharon here, and I've got my friend Vanessa with me here as well. She has been with me most of this entire ordeal, so I guess she's the person that I've told the most about and provided me a lot of the support. We do work together, so she was there for me at work and outside of work as well. I just want to quickly say a big thank you to all the support that I've received from both the TikTok and Instagram posts. Honestly, it means a lot. It's great to get some support after a long time and just get my story heard. Bear with me, I am talking very slowly just because things are coming to me in a very slow state. I am suffering from a lot of anxiety, so it's taking a lot to actually put this out.
And the reason that I'm here is because Sharon hasn't been very keen on telling her full story because she's worried about the backlash, and it's taken a lot this morning for me to get her past her anxiety doing this video. So that's why I'm here for support to sit through and maybe suggest things that she has forgotten as well.
Yep, it's appreciated. I've written down a lot of notes here, so again, I might be a bit slow, but just bear with me. I guess the first thing to address, first of all, is how this all started. And I know a lot of you have asked that question. I will leave timestamps in the YouTube comments below, so if you want to skip ahead, you can do that. So how it all started in 2011 or 2012. I was 20 at the time, and I went to build my first home. And the building process was obviously quite easy, but there was a lot of issues with some of the surrounding neighbours regarding retaining walls. We got into a big legal situation with one of the neighbours just because they had taken a lot of one of the side boundary properties of mine, and basically they had taken land and would not give it back. I did have a restraining order against a gentleman in that house because as a result of trying to get that property back, he had threatened me and ran at us with shovels and whatnot. And yeah, so why I need to bring that up is because that incident gets connected to this a lot. And I think it does get used as an excuse that I'm set out on a personal vendetta against whoever lives in that house. What does need to be taken into consideration is that there are several other houses in the neighbourhood, and a lot is being said about me and my family also, but it's coming from a small handful of people. I do live in a standard Australian residential area, so it is quite a well-populated area. It's not like it's just there's only 2 or 3 families in the street is what I guess I'm trying to get to. So that's the start of it. That was regarding the first neighbours. Moving on from that, we had the current family move in who live there. Again, I've had a lot of people ask me for property details and names. I don't want to give out any names or anything, obviously, for legal reasons, and also I'm not condoning personal attacks on the family or anything. For that reason, I've kept all their details quiet. I hope you can understand that. So the family moved in there 3 or 4 years ago. In the start, we were on good terms with them. I personally didn't know them that well at first. There was a few families in the neighbourhood that would get together and have drinks. My father socialised with these people, including the neighbour in the video. On my father's birthday one year, we were having a bit of a get together and drinks, and this is the first time I actually sat down and had a conversation with the man in the video. My gut feeling told me that this was not someone I wanted to associate with, but I like to give people a chance. So during that conversation that night, a lot of things had been said that I deemed quite inappropriate between how a father should respond to things going on in their daughters' lives. I don't want to make the comments because a lot of them were sexual, and I don't want this video to be taken down on that basis. So later on that night, this gentleman, he has 7 or 8 kids. His kids were in the area at the time, and he asked me for a straw. And in my mind, I really thought the straw was just for one of his kids' soft drinks. I got him the straw, and his words to me were, "Come on, I'll show you how to shoot some crack," or something like that. And at first I thought it was a joke, but he literally pulled out a powdered substance and put it on the table and snorted it right in front of my eyes, and one of his children were there. There were a lot of adults there that night, and I didn't want to bring it up then, as I was worried it was going to turn into an argument. I kept it to myself, which in hindsight I shouldn't have done. I should have brought it up earlier on. A few days later, it might have been the following weekend. It's been a few years again, so I can't remember the details 100%. We had another get together. I was offered a glass of wine by another member of that family. At this point, I was very hesitant to take something from them, and I refused the beverage. The drink was passed on to someone else, and they were asked to shake the drink, and I didn't quite understand at the time, but in front of everyone, sorry guys, anyway, in front of everyone, the drink was stirred by the person that took it, and they pulled out a small pouch, a plastic pouch with some sort of powder or something in it. At this point, we realized that this is most likely drugs. This was it. This was the second time that they had brought this along, and I was 100% going to tell my family after that get together was over, because I didn't want to bring up something when people had been drinking. Otherwise, it could, well, you all know how things can end when people have been drinking and arguments break out. Later on that afternoon, so I had returned into the house. My sister, who also resided with me at the time, just to backtrack, at the time I lived with my younger sister and my father, and my sister had returned home from work, and she said, "Oh, what's going on? There's all this stuff going on out the front. Dad's not feeling very well." I walked to the other end of the house, and I saw that my father was bleeding from his nose and his mouth. He couldn't stand up, and he had started grinding his teeth. Soon as he started grinding his teeth, I was like, no, this is not alcohol. There's something more to this. But the other adults involved at that time did not want to take him to the hospital. They just tried to tuck him into bed. And at this point, my father was vomiting, and my sister and I were naturally panicked and concerned that he was going to choke on his own, like vomit. We ended up calling the ambulance, and they took him away. He was in hospital for 8 to 9 hours, and the doctors told us that they believed he had been, his drink had been spiked with methamphetamines. So once my father came back from hospital, I had the chat with him about what had happened on his birthday night. And so from that point, we had a very civil conversation with the next door neighbours that we did not want to have any more gatherings at our house, and that we just needed to have a civil relationship just because of what had happened. They seemed fine with it. They were, obviously we didn't say to them, no, you've brought drugs, we don't want you here, because we didn't want the relationship to turn negative. It was just a matter of, look, no more social gatherings at our place, no more drinks, this and that, just remain on friendly terms. Obviously that didn't go down well. At first they seemed they were fine with it. few days after that, they started getting some of their children to throw uh, rocks about that big at our house. And there was also another house that was happening to, which the people actually ended up leaving because they had enough of it. They were renters, so it was easier for them to leave. But a few times we tried to go over and speak to the mother next door, trying to ask for her to control her kids, but she would not answer the door. On one of those afternoons, we heard a bang and we went outside. It was more like a shatter, really. Went outside and we saw that the car's windscreen, one of our car's windscreens, had been smashed. We tried to go and speak to the family multiple times, and you could hear them in the house, but no one would come out. At the next day, we ended up calling the police because we needed a police statement for our insurance claim. Keep in mind, at this point, we did have security cameras around the house, but they were switched off. They were only put up there because of the previous neighbour. As we hadn't had issues with this current neighbour, all of the cameras weren't switched on, so the area where the car was didn't actually get picked up. However, the father admitted to it in front of the police, and he said, like he owned up to it and basically said that he would pay for the damages. And after that, he did not. Obviously, he didn't hold up his end of the bargain. It was about $1,200 worth of damages. Going on from then it was a matter of waiting for us for when we come home. And when I say we, I mean both me and my sister at that point. When we come home, they would stand at the end of their driveway and hurl abuse at us and threaten us, and basically ask for us to go onto the street where they could attack us. At that point, well, that's what they always say. It's like he doesn't want to attack us on our own property. Whether that's in his mind going to be a legal loophole, I'm not sure. But yeah, so that's what happened there. Must have been 2 months after that or so. My sister was coming home from work. I heard a lot of screaming, both my father and I. When I went outside, the entire family was out on the street and they were ripping into my sister, saying that she had nearly run over their children on the street. At this point, another neighbour had chimed in. There was a lot of racial comments made towards my family about how we needed to go back from where we came from.
And mind you, Sharon was born in Australia.
Yeah, and that didn't seem to matter, or not that it should matter. So things were said back and forth to obviously protect ourselves. If someone's saying things to you, you're going to say things back. There was no threats made on our behalf. We admitted to everything that we said in statements to the court when restraining orders were applied for. The individual in the video, the male, admitted to making threats against my family members. Just as a side note too, guys, I am making a lot of references to documents in this video, as it's not easy to see documents on a video format. I will be uploading them on later on. Obviously, names and things will be crossed out except for my family's identity. But yes, so they will be coming for the people that are going to obviously ask for evidence on a lot of these claims. Yes. So
and you're going to be putting some surveillance camera stuff up as well.
There will be further surveillance camera footage being uploaded over the coming week as well. So where was I on that? Yep, so threats were made on that day. Things got quite heated, but we decided to go back inside because that's when the threats started and we were genuinely scared at that point. My sister called the police. and the police basically said, look, you have the rights to apply for a restraining order, but they weren't going to get involved. My sister then applied for a restraining order, which obviously the family contested. A lot of evidence was supplied. So there was an interim order put in place to protect us at that point until the matter was finalised in court. As a result of, I guess, having an order on them, the husband and wife next door came up with a lavish plan to involve one of their children, and tried to, what would you say, get my father arrested, basically, was the end game. It was, we were sitting in our house one day. There was a lot of noise going on at another neighbour's house next door. There were people all over the street that day. We heard knocking on our door in the afternoon, and when my sister answered the door, there was 3 police officers at the door. They told my sister that they were going to, that they were going to record on body-worn cameras, and that the entire conversation was recorded, to which she said she was fine with. She then let the police officers inside. Both my father and I were on the couch. The police officers entered the house and said that they were going to place my father under arrest. We were very confused at that time and in shock as well, because we couldn't understand what had happened. My father hadn't gone outside. He had at the time a severe gout flare-up, which again evidence was provided to the court as well. So he couldn't actually walk, and which doesn't line up with the claims they made. So the police then said to us that a claim had been made that one of the children had been shown a machete by my father, and that he had motioned for a machete to be drawn across his throat, and that she was really terrified, and that she was running around on the street crying and whatnot. And without evidence at that point, the police...
Mind you, that they don't own a machete. They also authorised them to search Sharon's house for machete, and nothing was found. So,
well, they didn't even search it. They chose not to. But again, we were open with them. Go search the house.
You have got the footage of the police cam too. That are you going to post that up? Or?
Well, I don't know if I can. I'll have to check the legalities of that. But again, I've got the police statements which I can provide, which cover what was on the actual body cam footage. They viewed our CCTV, which at that time didn't cover our front door because we didn't think it was necessary, which we learned after this incident, and we are now covered on that. They viewed the footage and they basically said that they couldn't approve or disprove the claims that were made. Prove or disprove the claims that were made, and that they were unarresting him, but they would still be taking out a restraining order out on him. To which my father said, okay, what are you going to do in that situation? You're not going to get all violent and up in the police officer's face. He knew he hadn't done anything wrong, and we would provide evidence for that later on. The police then went back to the neighbour's house where the party was happening and spoke to the gentleman that had made the claim about his daughter and the daughter as well. She put up a great act at the time and made it seem like it had really occurred to her. The father was quite... intoxicated, and he didn't seem to actually genuinely care about the welfare of his daughter. It was more, his intent was to get my father arrested at the time. And this was an observation made by the police later on, which is noted in the police statement. So after that, there was a temporary order in place until, again, the matter got finalised in court. Now, as a result of that, my father did not, well, even now, does not leave the house unless someone is around with him, just because he is scared, not scared, well, worried for his reputation that one of these children are going to make this false allegation or some form of false allegation against him. That's no way to live. No one should have to put up with that. In the end, the police withdrew their application for the violence order against my father that they had applied for. Again, I have the written papers for that from the police, and I will be uploading that later on. I don't know for people watching around the world, but in Australia, it is quite difficult for police to withdraw an application for an AVO that they have applied for. So they were, even though they're not saying it, it is quite obvious that they knew that there was no evidence of a real...
Because it never happened.
Yep, of a real attack. And on the same day, the CCTV footage also shows the same child who was very traumatized at that point, dancing with a friend at the end of our driveway. There were several adults present that day and several children. No one on the street seemed to have seen this occur other than the girl who made the claims. And the other thing which is baffling me is, why were there so many adults meters away from our home who genuinely thought a man was brandishing a machete, not taking their kids inside? The street was loitering, like covered in children and adults.
Drinking,
and
carrying on.
None of them actually seemed like they were fearing for their kids' safety. So that was that incident. From that, there have been several other false allegations made towards myself, even my sister and my dad. My sister was accused of driving around filming the family. This was not true. Again, the individual that was making these claims was in the position where he was recording us, actually him and his wife. We do have dash cams attached to our vehicles, just because after that claim where they said that the children had nearly been run over, we needed to provide, have ourselves covered. Just on that day, again, the police did review the CCTV footage of my sister driving, and they did confirm that she was not, that the children on the road were not at risk and that my sister wasn't speeding. Some of the allegations that have been made are that I've threatened his wife, that I was going to kill her when I went out to clean my car one day. Again, I had other family members outside with me. They called the police. The police were here within minutes, and I explained to the police what happened. And I said to them that they can view the CCTV footage, where I have not looked up at the family at all. I haven't spoken to them, but the police weren't interested. And this has happened multiple times too. Some police have been good. They have actually viewed the footage. Other ones have viewed the footage and not cared, or there's other ones that just refuse to view the footage at all. So the police basically said to me that day, "Oh, are you sure you didn't whisper the threat?" And that was unreal. How is someone going to hear me whisper a death threat? And after the alleged threat, the family had continued walking past me several times as I was cleaning my car. Their fear was not evident at all. From that day, the police said to me, just keep your phone on video mode. Don't hold up your phone to them or anything, and just record. That way the audio gets captured, and for that reason they can act on any events that have happened based on what's being said, not necessarily videoed. And that's exactly what I did. Whenever I go outside to throw out the rubbish or to get the mail and things like that, that normal people can just go out and do at their own leisure, but my family don't have that privilege. Yeah, exactly. Um, and that's why every time I go out there, I'm with my phone for that reason. Again, I've supplied police with audio recordings of things that have been said and very derogatory comments. And a lot of it was around incest and whatnot, which I'll get onto later on in the video. And police just don't seem to react to that. I just want to quickly also, before I get into the rest of this, is address the video that has gone viral on TikTok. When I first posted that, I honestly did not believe it was going to get that much attention. It was the first video I'd posted on TikTok, and I just assumed it was going to be seen by like 300 people.
The first one she did put on, she did edit it so it was only them talking, but I did speak to her about her mistake that she needs to put a larger version in of what was she saying in that, which she did, but it got removed by TikTok because it got reported. So I would like to point out that fact, and if you go to Instagram you can also see that, and she, in that video, she does regret what she said about the children. She did it out of anger, and people need to stop acting like they haven't said things that they regret, because I personally have, and all this is just build up for Sharon. She lost it because the individual over next door there accused her of sleeping with her father, and she's just gotten very sick of those incest comments. It's not very nice. So I'd like to point out that.
Thanks, Sharon. Vanessa. No, guys, I am sorry for the comments I made, and obviously I didn't want to say anything offensive to the children, but like Vanessa said, I was under a lot of pent-up stress from just 2 years of this, and again, I'm not making an excuse, but it is fair to say a lot of people have said things they didn't mean in the heat of an argument. So that's in regards to that video. There were other things said as well from both parties, which cannot be put online just because of the sexual comments that got made in the videos. And for that reason, a lot of social media sites would be pulling that video down, which is why I believe that video initially got taken down on TikTok.
And I would like to point out the fact that Sharon's got a video that she cannot post because it will get taken down. We've actually got some footage of this individual's brother and a female in the middle of the street on a car having sex. And I mean, this video is full on porn. Like, it's disgusting, and it's like they've done it to give Sharon some sort of sick show. Now, this is how sick these individuals are.
On that incident, on that particular incident, thanks for bringing that up, Vanessa. I was in my bedroom. Now, to give you context, the street is probably less than 4 meters from my bedroom. That night, I was in my room and I could hear sounds. And when I looked outside, there was these people out there full-blown having sex and other sexual acts.
Would you be able to maybe take some photos of little snips of it and just give them little examples of it and put it on the internet maybe?
Yeah, I guess I could do that.
It's quite disgusting. Everyone would be disgusted watching this. It's right in the middle of the street at night time, like on a car.
And that's, again, that just highlights the fact that why would you do that when there's children in the neighbourhood? All these comments about neighbours getting angry and upset and had enough of my family and moving out. Where are those people? Like, what are they doing with their children's safety and whatnot? How can they let something like that go on in a family-friendly neighbourhood and not worry about the concern of their children?
I think a lot of the other neighbours in the neighbourhood don't know about this video because they've specifically done it right outside Sharon's house to, I don't know, some sick form of intention. I don't know how to explain it. It's just disgusting.
And the upsetting thing too with that is, so I live in a town that's on the Victorian and New South Wales border. There was a video recently in the last few months, really, of a couple that had, I guess, had sex in public, and the video had gone viral, and Victoria Police were very quick to act on it. However, in New South Wales, this footage was supplied and no action was taken. I have a letter from the police regarding that incident and several other incidents where they have said they won't be taking action. I don't know about you, but I cannot understand how the police can condone a full-on porn video in the middle of a residential street.
Mm-hmm. And the actual neighbour comes out and disturbs their little sex scene, and they stop, and then the guy goes back into his house and they continue their sex, porn, whatever you want to call it. It's disgusting.
Just makes you sick thinking about it. What else to go from there? I'll just pause these videos in between just so I can gather my thoughts and restart. So I'll just pause that now quickly. Okay, so we're back again, and in this section we're just going to go over some of the incidents that have happened and basically the response that we've had from police. So this is just the current restraining order that we have in place. If you're not able to see it, we're just going to read over it. And again, I've just covered the names to protect the person and for legal reasons. So do you want to read it?
Okay, on it, it's got A, assault or threaten them.
So these are things he must not do.
Yeah, he must not do. Stalk or harass or intimidate them, and intentionally or recklessly destroy or damage any property that belongs to or in the possession of, I'm not going to say names out here of Sharon's last name and that, but obviously her father and her sister. You must not go into the place where father, Sharon and sister live, any place where they work, or any place listed here. And then it's got, you must not approach the protected person or go within 5 meters or contact her, him or them in any way unless the contact is through lawyers. Just goes on that he could face up to 2 years prison or a $5,500 fine. Also got on here, for example, they are not to contact through social media, messages, emails, or GPS trackings, etc., which obviously they've breached a lot of this, as you're going to hear.
Okay, so we'll start with the behaviour of the individual that this order is actually against. Like I said, he has previously admitted to making death threats in writing. These threats have been ongoing. Some weeks I can receive them 3-4 times a week, and then for weeks they're quiet. I don't know what sets them off. It just seems to be a random thing. In the statement that he's provided to the court, like I said, he's confessed to the threats, and quite disturbing to me is he's told his solicitor that he knows my work hours when I leave for work and when I come home.
Now that is stalking.
He peeks through the glass paneling on my front door. He's climbed onto the roof of his house and sat there and looked into my house. So the side of his house looks into where my kitchen is. So we don't open the blinds anymore. Of course, he's denied that. I don't have cameras up on his roof. That's just ridiculous. So obviously,
he's aware of that, so that's why he's done it.
And a lot of people are going to say that it's my word against his, but again, I can't prove it, and it's really up to each individual to make their own mind up on that. In regards to the work times, whenever I come home from work, most days he is outside on the edge of my driveway or on the edge of his driveway. So our driveway's at the end of a cul-de-sac and the driveway's ends just merge. He won't move from my driveway unless I start honking or something. And again, if I do that, I'm in the wrong in the eyes of certain followers of his in the community. I'd come out of my car and I'd be given death threats. I'd be fat shamed. I'd have racist comments made at me. Incestuous comments, which towards the end there has been a lot of. And look, I live in a small town, and most people know someone that knows someone, and for things like that to get around is just.
And I'd like to point out that not that Sharon should have to point out her culture or, her family situation, but it's quite common in Sharon's culture for them to live with their parents and take care of their parents. So this is very sick, and also need to be educated on certain cultures.
And just on that, again, and I've said it time and time again, I don't need to justify why my father lives with me. But from a young age, he has been my number one supporter, and including my grandma, who has passed away. But my sister and I grew up without a mother, and some of the comments that have been made, which I'll reflect on in the rest of the video, are just sick. We were quite young when our mother passed away. So to have things said like that, it's just unbelievable.
Okay, we're going to pause the video here.
Sorry about that, guys. I thought I'd make it through this without crying. So just on that culture thing, there's several people up our street that live with their parents and go around, adults that take their parents out walking and whatnot, and nothing, a finger doesn't get pointed at them. But there's so much said about us. But again, I'll get into that later on. Just like with other incidents, they've knocked over our bin several times with the guy's work vehicle, and they had at one stage placed their bins on our driveway, and it was very difficult for us to enter and exit. And at one point, my sister did end up knocking over one of theirs by accident. Again, she owned up to that. Just with the work cars, I think a lot of people have commented that in one of the videos that the man was actually in his work uniform, and whether I had contacted his workplace. A little while ago, I did contact his manager just because the man was, again, he in close proximity to my bedroom. He would park his work vehicle outside my room and just rev the car at odd hours of the night, or just honk his horn. So I'd be waking up 2-3 in the morning to that, and
banging on the fence.
Yeah, banging on the fence and whatnot. And the police again weren't doing anything about that. And because it was a work vehicle, I contacted his workplace. I'm not going to apologize for that. It had to be done. I have the right to get good sleep and everything else, and it wasn't just bothering me. There were other people.
And him working for that company is representing them in that vehicle and in the clothing that he wears, so he shouldn't be doing it.
And just so that was a while ago. I believe the manager at that time spoke to him, the individual that was the manager at the time, and from that, then it stopped. Recently, again, I had to contact them for a similar thing where they were setting off their car horn and whatnot at just ridiculous hours, and at me whenever I was reversing in and out of my driveway. And again, I there were times where I need to enter the start of their driveway just because of how our driveways come together. And yeah, he just carry on about that and whatnot. So again, a lot of that was using his work vehicle. So I contacted his office. His office said that they were not going to get involved in personal matters, which I 100% didn't expect them to, but they would speak to him regarding the correct use of his company vehicle. Now, that was quite recently, and from that day, I haven't had any more, I guess, noise disturbances from that vehicle. But that was handled by his local office. Now, I'm not sure whether Wormwood will choose to act on what they saw yesterday. I'll leave that up to them.
But with the driveway incident, me sitting here doing this video, I've just witnessed one of their family members come into Sharon's driveway with their vehicle, reversed out into another driveway, then reversed into their family member's driveway. Now, petty little things like this, they're trying to set Sharon off. Now, they're carrying on about her being in their driveway, but it's them playing these silly little games, and it doesn't really bother Sharon that she's coming into her driveway, you know. And also because she knows that they're trying to get a reaction out of Sharon. Sharon is just not going to feed into.
Makes no difference to me if someone uses the driveway. I mean, it's to drive on. That's what it's there for. So what else was there? Yeah, so most afternoons when I'd come home from work, there's a large portion of time where he'd come out and he'd have an intimidating stance. You knew like he was trying to intimidate you. And for a long time there, I was so afraid of this individual. There were times there where I was afraid of his wife because of the violent outbursts she's had. I know a lot of people are going to say that I didn't appear frightened in that video, and yes, I did not. I accept that. And again, thanks to people that are close to me, they have been there for me through all the times that I was scared and have told me that I need to start standing up for myself. And that's what I did in that video.
From over the time that I've known Sharon, I wasn't aware of what she was going through first off until eventually she started opening up to me because she knows that I've personally been through domestic violence, I've been through sexual abuse. I've had a lot of counselling over these situations, and she hasn't got a lot of friends that have been through this situation. So when she did go to her other friends about this sort of stuff, they didn't really understand, they couldn't really help her until I come along, and I've been there. We've been trying to do it the right way through the law. I tell her to call the police. Police don't respond to the 000 calls, or they take 3 hours to respond. And I've got to tell her, keep calling them. She does. They don't come. I've seen her break down. I've had to stay here a number of occasions throughout the night because the individual next door has had these massive outbursts. Sharon gets so terrified. The panic attacks are just getting too out of control. I was here yesterday and I'm here again today to support her and get her story out because that's what she needs to do. Law enforcement won't help her, so we want to get her story out, her side of the story, because these individuals are convincing everyone in the street that Sharon starts it all. It's not the case at all. So I want to make awareness also for other people that are going through this to speak up. Don't stay quiet. If the police are not going to do it, speak up.
There's 100% such and we'll talk about it towards the end and why I made this video. There's just such a problem with how the law is upheld and I don't know if it's an Australia-wide thing because I've always lived in New South Wales or just a New South Wales problem, but if you are going through similar things, please, please bring it up. Contact me even. Like, I've been open with my name and everything on social media. Contact me. Like, I've been through it. We've both been through similar things. And if we can help you, we'll help you to the best we can. Where was I? So just on, I guess, a lot of that fear we could talk about was during the COVID lockdown last year in Australia. As I said earlier on, my sister had relocated to another part of Australia in another state. And one morning, early morning, my father and her left to help her move down. And that was early hours of the morning, like 4 or 5 in the morning. And at that point, as they drove away, my dad called me not long after and said, like, warned me that just be careful. He was out watching. He probably knows you're home alone. Dad did not intend on staying in Melbourne at that point. It was just a matter of getting my sister settled at her new premises. I came home from being out that day, and as I got out of my car, so what I used to do is when I'd come home from work or somewhere, I'd toot my horn just to let Dad know that I was home, and he'd come out and basically escort me inside the house because that's how terrified of them I was at certain points. So on this particular day, I came home, and just to give them the impression that my dad was still at home and that they did not know that I was alone, I tooted the horn. And as I got out of the car, and my family were absolutely right, they knew I was alone. Both the husband, wife, and a few of their children were there at that point. And as soon as I honked, there was things said like, "Oh, toot toot, keep honking. No one's going to save you. Daddy's not home," and all these things. And it was just unreal. Like, I was so frightened, and at that point I had not told other people what was going on, so I was sleeping at home on my own, without anyone around to protect me or anything.
This was for about 6 months, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I had to stay out a couple of times.
Once I started telling you about all this. And during that first, like I said, my dad got locked down, so he couldn't enter back into the state at that point. So I was here. Like, for anyone wondering why Dad did not come back.
That just tells you the extent of the amount of stalking that this guy goes to know that her father went home.
And I was that frightened, honestly, guys. I don't know what I would have done even if someone had attacked me, but I was sleeping with a knife by my bedside table every night. When I went to shower, I'd take a knife in with me.
I also supplied Sharon with a bat.
I've never ever in my life been in a physical altercation with anyone. I wouldn't actually know what I would do if someone attacked me, but to feel some sense of safety, I had to do that to protect myself. It was just a frightening, and I think one of the hardest things was to just keep quiet about it and to just act like everything was fine. I did still have to go out to work and whatnot, and obviously I didn't want to be the person at work that was breaking down all the time, and I stayed quite strong during that period. I told my closest work friends about what was sort of going on, but never got into the full details. Sorry, just try not to. Yeah. even when I was talking to my family nightly, I wasn't really telling them how I was feeling. I didn't want them to worry, and to be honest, I didn't want to seem weak. And like Vanessa said earlier on, I did try to open up to a few friends, but no one had been through anything similar, so they didn't understand that. And so I kept it to myself for a long time there, and obviously had to act strong. I knew at that point that things for my mental health were declining, so I started seeing a counsellor who escorted me home a few times just because she knew how terrified I was and understood the dangerous situation I was living in. Since then, I've also been diagnosed with major depressive disorder, PTSD, and severe anxiety. I've been put on medication and things just to try and cope with the panic attacks, and it was something I was hesitant to do, and I always wanted to keep it to myself because I thought that I shouldn't look weak, and that breaking down was just a sign of weakness. People would think I'm overreacting. But once I started having the panic attacks at work and I'd have to go hide in the toilets just to settle down, or I'd have a panic attack while driving, feel like I'm going to black out. So I had to bring this up.
Now, in some of the videos, you can see the neighbour actually bringing up Sharon's depression and stuff. Now, I find that quite disgusting. You shouldn't be saying those sort of things about mental health. Mental health is a big deal these days, and it is a big thing. You know, a lot of people, they kill themselves. You know, they hide themselves away. It happens. People need to open their eyes to it. And the comments that they've made about it is disgusting.
Yeah.
And also, it's not just Sharon, it's her father as well. He's too scared to leave the house. He doesn't even go for his drives that he liked to do on a weekly basis. His car parked in the garage. It's got stuff stacked on top of it because he never uses it now. He just doesn't want to leave the house because he's worried about what they're going to say to him, what they're going to accuse him of, the abuse, you know. And in that video, you did hear someone yell in the background, and that was her dad. You know, but he's too scared to even come out the front door because of the stuff that's going on, you know. And he's not a fighter. He doesn't go around causing fights. He may say what's on his mind, but he's definitely not a fighter. So
he defends when he needs to.
Yeah.
And in that video, a lot of people have asked what happens when the video ends. Sorry, I'll cut that part out. I've just blurted out the name. The individual smashed the beer bottle, obviously, when I said what I said, and got up in my face. Dad heard the smash, comes outside, and he was heading out with a metal bar that he picked up in the garage on his way out because he thought, oh sorry, I keep saying the name, that the individual was going to attack me with. I can beep out the name. Yep, and at that point, I turned around and went back into the garage, and again things were still being said back and forth, and calmed Dad down and just.
But at the end of the video, Sharon did say some.
Yep, 100%.
That I've also pulled Sharon up, and she's realised her mistake there, but she's also said it out of anger. And like I said, people say things and then they regret it, and this is where one of the situations that this has happened. It is inset comments, and it is said about the children. But she said it because she's sick of the insect comments from the neighbours.
Yep. That's 100% right. And like I said, not justifying what I said, but I did say him at the time. And unfortunately, that's what's happened.
And she can't take it back. It's just as simple as that. She can only apologise, which she is very sorry for, because kids shouldn't be brought into situations like that. But as you can see, them kids don't even flinch with their parents behaving like that. Now, I've got children of my own. Now, if I behaved like that in front of my children, my kids would be absolutely terrified. They'd be crying. You can obviously tell that they do this all the time. Like you can see in the video that some of the older children are trying to grab the younger children to take them away, because that's how used to they are to having to deal with their siblings and get them out of this situation.
And in the video there too, I think one of the toddler walks up towards me, and the father steers away and says, "Don't go near her, she's diseased." And that's another comment that gets made, and it gets thrown around that we're diseased. I don't know where that came from or what that means, but again, it's just unnecessary. And just with some of the comments that have been made about my father, and he, like I said, he doesn't go outside in the street anymore just because of the things that have been spread around in the neighborhood. There have been several comments. I'll address the first, which is the incest comments. And they were embarrassing for me, but I need to say like what has been said now. So there were comments made where I was touching my father, or daddy and daughter touch each other, and
his dick.
Yep, there was that, which you all heard in the video as well. There was another argument another time where they said that they can see what's going on between me and my father when the blinds are up. In the video that I posted the other day, the female in there says no, that refers to me as a slut. And
says no, she's not a slut because she does it with her father, basically.
Yeah, so that's exactly what they've said. Only my father will touch me and that kind of thing. And there's a lot of people that have said that I should have been the bigger person and walked away. We have been the bigger people for years and have walked away. And until you're in that situation where you're having your name and your reputation dragged through the mud, I don't think you can understand what that feels like. And I honestly do want to thank you for the people that have stood up for me in the comments, in some of the comments I've read. I really do appreciate that. Things like that get said, and time again, you just can't keep walking away from it. It's not right. Another thing, there was another video which I can put up where audio was provided again to the police and nothing was done, where the individual is standing at the end of our driveway talking to a bunch of other people in the community, calling my dad a murderer, which I'm not sure again where that came from. A dealer, doesn't do drugs, don't know where that came from. Again, the incest comments, and the worst one of it all, which why dad does not go outside at all, is they have several times accused of him of being a pedophile. Now, there is no basis for this. The wife has admitted in a document that she has said this, and again, nothing gets done. We get told by police, oh, it's just petty, live with it, that kind of thing. And again, we have been living with it. We have let it go, as hurtful as the comments were, but it's just becoming more and more regular. No one needs to get their name dragged through the mud like that for something that's not true. My father does not have a criminal record of any sort. From a young age, like I said, it was always me and my sister, that he brought up. My sister was 2 at the time and I was 5 years old. There was nothing ever inappropriate done. We always had our friends over, other neighborhood children in different neighborhood, and there was nothing there to justify the comments that were made. I have friends who bring their children around and they are perfectly comfortable with their children being here. So things like that is why my father doesn't show his face in the neighborhood. And I hope people can see how that would affect you.
That would affect any male getting accused of something like that. It's pretty horrific. It's not something you ever want to be accused of.
There's a video, like I said, where all those comments can be heard, which were provided to the police. And the police on that day, I called them up, they didn't respond. I called them up the next day. I mean, they never showed up. Called them up the next day and they said, oh, someone will be out here. Again, they didn't show up, so my father and I went down to the police station and spoke with one of the officers. At this point, most of the police officers know both families, which is embarrassing in itself. So it's almost like they don't take our complaint seriously. On that day, I provided the video to the police officer and he basically said to me, it was evident he was making excuses up as to why not to act at that moment. The first thing he said was that the restraining order that was finalised in court hasn't been served to him, so he couldn't act. But then he also said that the interim order was still in place. However, what the individual was doing does not constitute as harassment. I do not know how that doesn't constitute as harassment. Like, what is the meaning of harassment? Someone could tell me. So that day, the police officer told me that he would serve the restraining order, the finalised one, and that was not done. In regards to how that was handled, the restraining order was finalised in court in 2020 on the 2nd of December. It was to be served. The police did not serve it. This is New South Wales Police. Did not serve it till the 4th of February 21. You can see the police officer has written the time and date of when it was served. And that was after multiple times of us asking for the order to be served. Now, there had been several incidents from when the order had been finalised to this date on the 4th of the 2nd. And each time the police tried to make an excuse around the fact that the final order hadn't been served, and each time reassured us that it would be. Now, there was another incident that occurred in December, just before New Year's, which I will talk about in a minute, where this individual and his brother-in-law, they're spying through the window.
So look at this, guys. Look at that. Right here, evidence. Look at them looking through the window. This is what they do. Now there's some proof for you.
Yep, so the window is tinted for anyone wondering, but if there's lighting inside, you can see outside as well, but we've got a lot of lighting on here just for this video. So yes, going back to that story that happened in at the end of December in 2020, this male and his brother-in-law had been arrested and taken into custody. The brother-in-law was charged and this individual was not, based on evidence that he was not involved. Now, while that individual was in custody, he still had not been served with the restraining order. We later contacted, because we wanted to know why police weren't acting, and there was also comments made by this individual that he knows people within the police force, which I'll get onto again later on. Yep, so they hadn't served it, sorry. So we reported it to higher up, which you can do online, and they investigated the issue and assured us that there was no corruption within the department. And also, one of the things that they did acknowledge was that the restraining order, once finalised in court, should have been long overdue served. So they owned that part. What I cannot understand is why so many police officers would say to our face that yes, they're going to serve this restraining order and then not do it.
What about his brother being a police officer?
Now, there were comments made several times, which is caught on body cam footage of police. That was also said in front of police on the day that the major arrest happened, that this individual's brother-in-law is in the police force, so he knows his rules, rights and laws, that he'll take the matter to his brother-in-law. In the body cam footage, he admits to his brother-in-law being in the New South Wales police force. The other thing was, on the day of the arrest, he says in front of multiple police officers, there were dozens of officers up the street that day, that nothing's going to happen to him because he's already spoken to the sergeant. Whether he was talking, making things up, or I'm not sure, but the doubt was there, so we have reported that. But again, there is obviously someone providing this guy advice on how far, well, basically on what he can get away with, which he takes full advantage of.
And when he has breached it, his restraining order, he still gets away with it.
Yes, exactly.
Tell me that. How does that work?
Yep. So on that incident that had occurred in late December, as I said, this individual's brother-in-law, so I believe, yeah, the brother of his wife, basically, him and the brother-in-law were out the front of our place, out the front of their place, loitering in our yard and whatnot, and they were drinking for days after Christmas. And every time we went to go outside or we backed out of our car with our car, they harassed us. Leading up to that time, there was a few incidents reported to the police. Again, they felt like they didn't need to act, or they didn't have enough evidence, whatever reason they came up with. But I said to them, look, guys, this is building up. It's going to reach a point. On, I think it might have been the 30th of December now, my sister and I had just had enough of being trapped inside and just not being able to go out and do something. At that time, my dad was asleep in the house. We were all just stressed to the max. Like, again, it was too much. So we thought we'd go out for a drive. As we backed out, my sister noticed that the brother-in-law was looking into our yard, and we quickly got into the car. As we're reversing, the brother-in-law has this plank of wood, like you get at the hardware store, and he gets the wood and he smashes it across the top of his tray bar on the back of his ute, and he's looked at me and he's gone like this. And in the meantime, the guy with the restraining order was pacing back and forth behind him. Now, I didn't know this brother-in-law personally. It wasn't except for the 2 or 3 days before that, when he started harassing me, that I first said to him, leave us alone. Now, one of the things in this restraining order says is that this individual must not, you must not do any of these things in person or through another person. Now, I don't know this brother-in-law, yet he did these things, but apparently that doesn't count as something being done through another person. So anyway, me and my sister freaked out. We were like, now what? We drove off because we didn't know what to do. Called my father, and my father was inside, like I said, asleep at that point, and he said, go to the police station right now. We told him to stay indoors and not come out because these people were pickled in alcohol at that point, and I don't know if other substances were used. They were, like I said, they had been drinking for days. We went to the police station, spoke to a female officer. It sort of at first seemed like nothing was going to be done. But after we both broke down, and I think the police officer knew how frightened we were at that point, she took us in, tried to find a reason for something that she can 100% take action on. Now, that day, we were told we were too frightened to come home. The police officer said that we would be met with police escorts when we got close to our street, and they would escort us to go inside. And later that day, once all the paperwork was done, the two individuals would be arrested. By the time me and my sister drove home, we were driving home, I got a call from Dad. And he said, "What's going on? Where are you guys? There's police up and down the street and there's screaming going on." By the time we got to the street, the police had stopped our car at a house, one house further up. And there was just officers down the street. I could see the individual pinned against the car and he was being handcuffed. They put him in the back of the police vehicle, from which he was making all sorts of comments again and threats. Police were there again, not reacting to him. And at the same time, the brother-in-law was also there. He was being set aside to be put in a different vehicle, I guess, a police vehicle. So he was made to stand on the curb. From there, him and his sister and some other lady who I didn't even know at the time, which had turned out to be another neighbor, had come over, and we were getting yelled at and whatnot, and the police were not reacting to them at all. We had a police officer walking past a car, which we stopped him and said, "Look, can we cross through and just get into the house?" And he basically advised us to just stay in the car and not move until the guys were both locked up and taken away. Now, the female has made some comments where the police had been sent over by them to us and said that we were recording them and that the police had asked us to stop recording. Now, that is not true at all. Again, it's her word against ours, but I'm sure, like, if the police involved ever step forward, he could say the same thing. But I hardly doubt that will happen. So both the men were taken away, and again, it was during that time that the main guy said that he had already spoken to the sergeant and nothing was going to happen. Not long after, I was called up by the police and told that the man living next door would be released because he was not a part of it. It was just his brother-in-law, which to me was just bizarre because like I said, I did not know his brother-in-law. So again, I was like, okay, he's gotten away with it. Now what? So then they told me that they would charge the brother-in-law and it would get taken to court, but I would not have to attend. Now, this is where I don't know if what's happened is true or not, just because of something that was said by the neighbours the other day. I called up the police and asked what happened with this, with the brother-in-law, because his bail conditions were that he was not to attend his sibling's house until his court hearing. And I had noticed that he had started attending, and I was starting to get a bit worried. So I called up the police and said, okay, what has happened? Because I wasn't involved with the court case. The police said that she couldn't find him on the system and it took a while for her to find him. When she did, she told me that the individual had been charged with a $500 fine, which I thought was just ridiculous. But she said, and she was surprised too, that this was apparently his first offence, and that is why it was such a poor charge. So out of interest, I had a look online to see if I could find anything on this individual who had intimidated us, and with a one enter of a Google search, all this information came up about how there were warrants out for his arrest for previous assault charges in Geelong by Geelong police. And that was disturbing in itself, because I'm like, holy shit, this guy has got a criminal record. But again, not much gets done. Now, I was under the impression at that point that a charge had been laid, even if it was a measly one. But the other day, during that argument that you all saw, the lady does say that the police did not charge the brother-in-law. Now, her brother. Now, I don't know if what the lady's saying is true or if what the police are saying is true. So that's that there. There's been several incidents, I guess, where things have been said, and I don't know, again, if it's coming from the next door neighbours or if that's exactly what the police have said. There were syringes thrown onto my property and on the driveway earlier on. It might have been earlier on this year. And they were needles or syringes, and when I looked closely, there was some sort of fluid in these needles. One of those were on my lawn, and I kicked it over to the pile with the rest of them, which I 100% admit. I did not want to step on those needles. I did not want to touch them. I didn't know what was what was in them. And because it was amongst the rubbish that the neighbours had been piling there for months, I assumed it was theirs. Now, I called council up and asked them to take these needles away. They said, sure, no worries, we'll get onto it. Didn't get done. I called them again because one of the afternoons, the neighbours' kids were playing around the needles, and I was genuinely concerned that the younger children were going to step on them. Now, I called the council again and voiced my concerns over it. They said, sure, we'll come in, we'll do it. Over the weekend, they still hadn't showed up. And over the weekend, the kids were playing around there, and I was concerned for them. I didn't think at that point to call the police because I didn't think that was something they would do. I thought maybe like it's a cleanup sort of thing. So I posted a thing on our local community group to ask for suggestions on who to contact regarding this and like what had happened. Again, I did not name anyone. I just said some neighbours. Now, the guy that had been charged posted a threatening comment on Facebook regarding this, as he shared the post that I had. I'm not friends with him on Facebook. It's the only way I found out. Police said that I cannot, that they can't prove it was him, even though it came from his account. They took the needles and told me that they would be looking for fingerprints on them. And they also asked if they could watch my CCTV footage to see who put them there. No worries at all. I said, come in, have a look. The police did. They saw that I had kicked one of the needles over to the rest of them. And they said they would let me know in a few days on what the outcome was. A few days later, the police sent me a called me up to give me a reference number, and I asked him what the outcome was. And he said to me at the time, look, there were no fingerprints or anything found on the needles. We know you haven't done it, and if anything like this happens again, just give us a call. Now, that's what I heard, but what the neighbours yelled out to me the other day was that they are the needles that I've placed there and that I've admitted to the police that I placed them there. I would just like to say I would never do something like that. I don't use needles. I don't condone using needles. I know it's everyone's choice, but I don't agree with that. I most definitely wouldn't leave needles lying around in public areas where people can step on them. So in this video, it was mentioned that the police have said that, and now I don't know if that's true, if the police have said that. If they have, that's not right. And another comment that was made later on in that video is the male says to me, they weren't even junkie needles. Do you know what junkie needles look like? I think that says enough, in my opinion, anyway. So they just some other little things here and there that they do not as major as these ones, but it's just an ongoing thing. Is they use their children to throw balls and rocks and things into our yard because we have glass paneling on the front deck. Now, where I lie from, like where I sit down in my bedroom, I have a clear view of the street. I can see them ushering for their kids and showing them the target on where to throw the balls. And of course, the balls come and hit the class. And again, police say, oh, no, that's fine. You can't prove they're doing it deliberately, even though you can see him motioning in another video that I provided to them. And they basically said, well, if the guy wants to go get their ball from your yard, he's allowed to do that. He can go onto your property for those kinds of reasons. And they also said it doesn't matter if he's on the crossover or nature strip.
And as you see in the order, it says about damaging property, if it's intentional or not intentional. It's still breach of the restraining order. And they've broken one of the garage windows, which still nothing was done.
Nothing gets done. Now, with him entering the ball to get it, him entering the yard to get his ball, that if you're looking from outside, it might seem innocent, but because I know of the manipulative games these people play, it is intentional.
This is all the time thing.
My two concerns, and in hindsight, well, the concern is that, okay, they're going to smash the glass, they're going to smash the window, but my bigger concern was that he was getting closer and closer to my bedroom each time he entered the room, each time he entered the property. He stands, less than 2 meters away from my bedroom window in my actual yard as an excuse to collect the ball, and police say that's fine. Like, he's allowed to do that.
It's to the point that Sharon the other day went outside to retrieve the balls because she's had enough, and they smothered one in dog poo.
Yep.
Sharon didn't know this, but she still picked it up and took the ball because she's just had enough of their childish games and involving the children, and they shouldn't be involving children in there. It's a way of them trying to cause some sort of argument, some sort of conflict, trying to, I don't know, get Sharon in trouble somehow. It's just little things like this that Sharon has to, and her dad has to put up with.
And obviously, if we say something, we're not going to go out there and blast at kids. One, don't yell at the kids, and two, also, it's not a good look because, again, it's going to make us look like the bad people or the problem.
And that's what happened the other day with Sharon with the kids. It made her look like that one.
As you can see. Another reason we don't want the kids on the property is just because of that, all those accusations that were made by the daughter regarding the machete and all those pedophile comments. Like, that's just what's stopping them from making comments like that again. And if that family were genuinely concerned that there was a pedophile living here or their kids' safety was like in danger, they would not be sending their kids onto the property.
And it's not only that, it's your property. If you don't want kids on your property, then they shouldn't be on your property. It's just simple as that.
Yep, that's right. What else? The individual has made it very obvious that he records us or takes photos or something from his phone. I did go outside the other day and record him because he was standing there recording my bedroom window when he went to put out the rubbish bin. There were several times where he's been caught on dash cam, my dash cam footage that shows him taking photographs. And police said it's fine as long as I get two stories from the police. One is if he's on his own property he can do it, or if he's on public property he can do it. It doesn't constitute as harassment or stalking or anything. What else? There was an incident where the brother-in-law was urinating on my driveway, and you can see in the CCTV footage provided that there's a male figure that comes up, but his face isn't evident in the video. You can see the urine spreading across the driveway, on my driveway. When I reported it to the police, no action was taken. They just said, oh, well, you can see a shadow there, but you can't prove who did it. Now they went and spoke to the neighbours. The neighbours have CCTV footage as well. They could have verified it. Now, again, that was just disgusting behaviour. I don't know how you can get away with urinating in people's yards and stuff.
It's just like the sex video. It's disgusting.
It's just, yeah, exactly the same thing. The other thing is we can't even let our dogs out in our yard because they throw like these. One day I heard my dogs barking. They were getting very riled up near the fence. I did hear one whimper when we went out and had a look. There were chunks of what looked like concrete. It was like concrete with chunks of gravel in it that had been thrown into the yard. So our dogs are locked up unless we're outside in case they do something to them as well. They're large dogs. They need to be out and about and get exercise. Again, we don't go outside, out like on the street to give them walks anymore just because we get harassed by them and just the reputation that they've given us here. Sort of made notes to address this in sections, but I think I've just crossed over a few. So just some of the responses from police, some of the comments that have been made, things like, we will let it slide this time. It's too much of a hassle to prove the breaches in court. You guys should move. You guys should just stay indoors. This is the authorities telling you this. We're supposed to live in a country where you have your freedom. Doesn't sound like freedom to me.
No, and police shouldn't be telling you to stay indoors.
Yep. And it's easy.
How would they feel if they had to stay indoors inside their home all the time? Couldn't even go out in their backyard. It's disgusting.
Exactly. And the fact that we should just move. Number one, it's no one's business if we just move. And two, it's easier said than done. There's a lot more to it than just picking up and relocating.
And not only that, Sharon takes a lot of pride in this house. She was very young when she built this house, and there's not many people that can say that I built a house at 21. So I don't see why she needs to move. She should feel safe in her home. She should be able to go out and about. Terrible. Absolutely terrible, I think.
So as I said, he has been caught using a phone to what looks like record us. Now, there was an incident only like a month or two ago where my sister had come to visit, and as we were reversing, we saw the individual next door holding up a mobile phone at us. It was very obvious that he was recording. Now, the entire thing was caught on dash cam and on CCTV footage. The police came along and said, again, excuses. The first thing they said was that he can do it from his own property. And when you look at the CCTV footage, again, the male knows exactly where he can stand. He was standing on public property, a part of the driveway, and then as soon as he pulls out his phone, he moves back onto his property. And it's like 2 centimeters from where he was standing. And that's when he lifts his phone up. So then that was their first thing. But when we start to put down the facts, the next thing they came up with is, oh, you can't prove that it was a mobile phone that he had in his hand. I've got the photographs. I've got the CCTV footage. I don't know what more proof you need.
Obviously, police aren't doing their job. They just don't want to do their job. or there's some hidden, I don't know, agenda. I don't know if they've got law enforcement on somehow on their side, or if this is a racial situation. I'm not the only one that's thought this myself. There's other people that have had their beliefs on this as well. Just the way they get treated. Their 000 calls don't get responded to, and when they do, it's hours later. I can remember one incident, Sharon had called the police at like 6 p.m. or something, and they didn't turn up, knock on her door, and I stayed here that night, did not knock on her door until 12:30 a.m. in the morning, and we were asleep. So, we didn't answer the door. We didn't hear them. We've seen them on the cameras that they turned up at that time. That is ridiculous. A 000 call is an emergency. You are meant to respond to that call straight away. So this tells you, if something really bad does happen and these individuals break into her house or attack her 000 calls ain't going to get responded to. It'll be too late. She'll be dead. So we would like to put that out there. If something like this does happen, we want to blame the New South Wales Police Force for this, because they are not taking Sharon, her dad or her sister seriously, and they need to before something like this does happen.
Yep. And I'm sure it's not just me it's happening to a lot of people, and that's why you see it all over the media. People are getting attacked, people lose their lives just because there's restraining orders in places and the law's not upholding the orders.
They just are worried about the paperwork, or, it's stupid stuff like that. They just don't want to do their job.
It's people's lives at risk. I mean, if they did their jobs, we wouldn't lose the amount of people that we do based on this every year. And some of you might find that funny.
There's stuff that we could sit here for hours and go over of what Sharon's been going through, but I think we've pretty much given you a clear idea of what this is doing to Sharon and her dad and her sister's mental state, what has been going on, that no one's helping them, and this is why we are turning to social media to tell Sharon's story. Because if something does happen to Sharon, it's the police's fault, and we want to get out there that they need to do their job. Simple as that. Start taking violence like this seriously, because it is a very serious thing.
And I don't want to become one of those people where if something, God forbid, something does happen, either to me or my family, and it gets swept under the rug. You shouldn't have to endure something like that, and if something happens to your life, you're injured, worse, it shouldn't get swept under the rug like a lot of cases do. So what else was there? I have been told multiple times to keep collecting evidence, and while they may not be able to prove in their words that there's breaches there, they said, we can compile a collection of evidence to show that it's an ongoing behaviour and that it's harassment and whatnot. But here we are, 2 years in, and nothing's been done, and it's ongoing. It's every second, third week. I just don't know what more needs to be given to them, whether it's just a matter of they say that and I walk away just to keep me happy. There's that. There's also a lot of double standards involved with some of the police officers. One of the examples is we were told, and I'm not sure if it is New South Wales law or not, that we cannot have audio on our CCTV cameras. Yet they apparently advised the next door neighbours that they can, and the next door neighbours currently do, based on some footage that they have provided to both the courts and me, do have their cameras switched on with audio.
So a lot of Sharon's audio doesn't have the volume on it because she was advised by police not to have the volume on. Now, I find that I don't really think that would be a law. I've seen a lot of videos with audio on, so I believe that New South Wales Police has told Sharon this. So she's got no evidence, so they don't have to do their job. They don't have to charge this neighbour with any offence because she can't really prove it when he does threaten her because she's got no volume on her audio. Now, I've advised her to turn it back on, but she's in fear of the police, has not. Now, also, could you put comments in here if anyone knows that if it is a law or if she's allowed to turn that volume back on, because we're not sure of that. But I find everyone's got their volume on, so I don't see why that she has to have it off.
I just don't know like why they've been advised they can have it on, but us not. But yeah, like Vanessa said, sorry, don't want me to say your name, do you?
No, I don't.
If you do know of the laws around it, please feel free to leave a comment or message us.
I think we'll pretty much leave it there. This is just an example of what Sharon's been putting through, and if we can continue to get into hate, more questions, maybe we'll do another video of what we've just got so much here written down. But as you can see, the video is so long now. But just open your eyes to the manipulation that these guys are doing. Just because they've got a family, they've made out to be the victim when they're far from it. They're just always sitting here trying to play sick little games to get Sharon to react to things.
They've got people that they know that, make up stories, or they get into the ears of other people in the neighbourhood that we don't associate with, because my family is very private. Like I said, I've kept this under wraps for a long time. We never want to air our laundry, I guess you could say. And we knew things were being said in the neighbourhood. That's why we keep to ourselves. But now's the time that we had to share this with you guys. I just want to, while we wrap up, or before we wrap up, I just want to say, again, like people are saying, am I not scared now that I'm posting this? Yes, I am. Like, I was extremely worried last night that something was going to happen. I no longer sleep in my bedroom out of fear that that's going to be the first place of attack. But again, like, my story wasn't being heard, and I don't want other people to go through this as well. So it is worth the risk me putting this online. So again, like, just to give my side of the story, because our reputation has been dragged under a fair bit. Again, like, I just didn't want to hide this anymore. Like I said, I've been keeping it very quiet with, like, especially with my workplace, because I did not want them to think that I was some sort of feral, or that something like, I was a problem. It was just embarrassing for me to be like, hey, I'm in and out of court over this. But it's all out in the open now. And I guess the other thing is, please speak up. Like, honestly, if you are going through this, anything similar, whether it's neighbourhood disputes or domestic violence, speak up about it.
Especially if police are not helping you, and this is a situation, police are not helping Sharon. They don't want to help her. And I think there may be a reason behind that. It's speak up, get your story out there, because if something does happen, then you've got some sort of proof online that you had this fear, police did nothing, and now you're dead, or you've been severely assaulted. Something bad's really happened.
And hopefully, like, with people speaking up more and more, things change for everyone. Because at the moment, how it seems is it's just a piece of paper. There's no point spending. We spent over 15, 20 grand in court trying to get a proper restraining order in place, and nothing's been done about it. One other thing I do need to say is, actually, I might have already mentioned it, that restraining orders were taken out by the other party as well. Now they got withdrawn, I'm guessing based on lack of evidence and their legal advice. We did sign, the wife of the next door neighbour and I agreed to legal undertakings, which was basically an agreement to stay away from each other, but was not bound by a legal order. I agreed to that. I had actually spoken to my lawyer on settling that matter outside of court first, but they did not agree to that. Now, on the day in court, they finally decided that yes, they decided that that's the route they wanted to go down. Now, they had flown out their barrister from another city in Australia, and as a result, I was made to pay by the court for that barrister's legal fees. Now, I think that was unfair because I had already initiated the legal undertakings between the wife and myself. Obviously, not with the gentleman because there was no way I was risking not having orders. But yes, that's the situation there. So there's currently no restraining orders out against us. There is just one against the male in that family with the order that we've read out. Yeah, so that's the story. On, like Vanessa said, there's a lot going on. There's heaps. We could be going on for hours.
Now, we will be putting some proof up. We will be putting some surveillance cameras, a sample of things, what we are allowed to put up. We will be putting some paperwork up.
Just do understand that it does take time to get all that together. I'm not just going to disappear over the next week or so. All this stuff will start to come to light and I'll keep you all updated. Again, thank you all so much for your support. I thank my family and definitely Vanessa for being there, because I think she's, with my dad and Vanessa being there, it's taken a lot of weight off. And she's been through all of the ugly times as well. Yeah, so thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Just on like watching their kids and what, there was also the allegation that we're watching them with a telescope, watching their kids with a telescope. That's just ridiculous. I do have a telescope in my room, which I am not embarrassed to show if people want to see it.
Excuse the
mess.
Disorganization, but like she said, don't use this room because she sleeps on the couch.
Here's the telescope. Can you all see that? Yep. So as you all know, we had a red moon or blood moon, whatever it's called, not that long ago, like a month or two ago, and that's what I had taken that out for. Now they've again twisted the story and said that I'm using that to look at their children.
That's ridiculous because you can't even see around their driveway. Why would she be using it to look in their house or whatever with a telescope? Honestly, you can't see around the bush. You can see the beginning of their driveway, but you can't see the house, especially the way their house sits. You go down the driveway and their house is like here.
They reported it to the police. Again, the police didn't actually believe them or seem they.
You think you'd be more? What a stupid thing to say. If someone's going to spy on you, you think they'd have binoculars or something like that. I just laughed when I heard that. I honestly did.
Yeah.
That's the extent of lies that they go to.
Yep.